Are you an adventurer looking to take your hunt to the next level? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the East Meets West Hunt podcast presented by Spartan Forge. On today's episode, I am joined by Heather Kelly, founder and CEO of Heather's Choice. Alaska born and raised, top-level collegiate rower, big game hunter, river guide, and athletic nutrition coach, Heather built her company to provide healthy food to fuel our adventures. So we discuss what's new with Heather's Choice, why nutrition is important to hunters, bad fats versus good fats, intermittent fasting, handling stress, and much more. On this week's Mountain Buck Monday, story of the week, coming to you on Tuesday, this one comes from Isaac Patry out of Maine. Isaac he actually wrote in more than I'm going to read off here, but it had multiple stories, so I kind of combined it together and gave a synopsis of one of the stories, but thank you for sharing, Isaac. This is a great story, and for anybody after listening to this wants to go check out the photos, head over to East Meets West Hunt on Instagram and East Meets West Outdoors on Facebook, and you can check out the photos of Isaac's buck from 2019. So Isaac wrote, "Thank you for what you're doing to help the hunting community. Here are my mountain buck stories. I went on a 3-year run of killing northern Maine giants. 2018, 197.5 pound 10 point with massive brows. 2019 was a 206 pound 11 point shot on the last day of rifle. And 2020 was a 252 pound 8 point, the 7th biggest buck in Maine that year. So I started my Maine big buck experience in 2012 when I was 15. I shot my first Maine buck, which happened to be 198 pounds giant Maine frame 8 point. I was hooked. I started filming and then killed my second buck a few years later in 2015 after not seeing a single buck for 3 years. In 2019, I hunted a brand new spot. It was a grueling year, especially the last week. We always sit dark to dark, and during that last week, it was below zero many days. Finally, at noon on the last day, I slammed a giant buck. Really cool rack, and my first one over 200 pounds. It's incredible I get to film these amazing animals in a state like Maine. Those who hunt areas like this understand the grind. Going 3 years in a row, successfully self-filming on this quality of bucks, it'll be hard to replicate." Yeah, Isaac, I give you credit for the self-filming portion of that too. On top of, killing those great bucks, it's definitely not for the faint of heart. So thanks for sharing. Anybody else has a mountain buck success story they want to send in, send it to beau@eastmeetswesthunt.com or just head over to eastmeetswesthunt.com and fill in the contact us form on the website. I will note to everyone, if it takes me a little bit longer to get back to emails coming up here, it's about to get a pretty busy time. I'll be heading on vacation this week, so I'll be gone for about a week and won't have access to a cell phone service or internet there. I don't know that for sure, but I don't believe that I will. And then I get back for like 5 days and I leave for Montana and planning on staying up to 21 days there. So I will be releasing podcasts the whole time I'm gone. I'm preparing those now, getting them built up and ready to go. But there might be a little bit of a lapse in communication for that time period there. So just wanted to give everyone a heads up. If I don't respond right away, I will get to it. It's just might take me a little bit. So I appreciate the understanding there. Other than that, I just wanted to mention there's an Instagram reel that's going to be going through making my favorite meal for Heather's Choice. So Heather filmed the whole entire process of making the smoked sockeye salmon chowder, and I'm editing it together and putting together a little video showing it. It's pretty cool. So if you are interested in Heather's Choice products after listening to this, just head over to heatherchoice.com, and if you use the code EastMeetsWest, you'll get free shipping on all your meals, and coming from Alaska, that'll save you quite a bit of ching. So check that out. In other news, East Meets West Adventure Nalgene bottles are back in stock, and I do have a new color available. So I have the original Woodsman, which is like a brown color, and then also a orange color that it's come out with, a little bit brighter. If you're like me and lose your water bottle sometimes when you set it down, this will help out with that. But those are up on the website. Go check them out. plenty of new stuff coming soon on the apparel side, including the Deer Camp collection. So just waiting to get the hats done there, and we'll be ready to go. But anyways, thank you guys so much for listening and supporting the podcast here. It just continues to grow, and I really do appreciate that. If you would and haven't already, please go leave a rating and review wherever you listen to the podcast. Share it with your friends. I greatly appreciate it. All right, we will talk to you next week. All right, we're live. Heather Kelly, welcome back to the podcast. It's been 2 years. I can't believe it.
Yeah, it freaks me out every time Facebook pops up with memories and it's like 6 years ago you were doing this. And I'm like, oh God, it's been 6 years. Like, where does the time go?
I know. It's funny. I mean, you've been on the show, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 times now, and but I was blown away when I saw it was 2 years ago since the last time we did it, because I felt like it was just really not that long ago. But yeah, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Was it 2 years ago then that you paid us a visit on your way back from your caribou hunt?
It was, yeah.
Oh my
Isn't that
God.
nuts?
That is nuts. It's so crazy.
Yeah, that would have been August of 2020 when we were coming back, and we stopped at you guys' house, and since you had moved and I hadn't been, up to Alaska to see you guys, except when you were living, out of town a little bit, and then you moved in town closer to work and everything there for Heather's Choice, and yeah, I can't believe that's been 2 years ago already.
Yeah, so nuts. You're coming back though soon, right? Relatively soon?
Next year I
Yay.
have a Sitka blacktail hunt booked. I don't know if I've even talked about that on the podcast, but yeah, I booked a Kodiak Island blacktail hunt. So going to do the unguided like vessel type trip, so that we'll be staying on a boat and then going, dropping us off for the day and then picking us up at night and being able to do some fishing and be able to eat on the boat and do all that kind of fun stuff. So I'm really excited about it. And yeah, it's another way to get me back to Alaska.
Yeah, I freaking dig it. With any luck, hopefully Brad will get his boat up and running again, and that will be like our weekend agenda. Because I think out in Prince William Sound, pretty much I'm sure there's a season for it, but each resident can get 5 Sitka blacktail per person per season. Isn't that ridiculous?
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Those deer
Yeah, so we could
populations must be good.
yeah, we could go get, I mean, they're almost impossible to find on the islands out there, but you can get 5 Sitka blacktail. I think you can get 5 black bears in a general season. And then obviously all of the halibut, rockfish, salmon, shrimp that you can possibly eat. So yeah, mission get Brad's boat running is high on our priority list.
Yeah, I could imagine. I remember when I was out there for the Heather's Choice retreat, which was in 2018, so that was 4 years ago when I was there for that. But that you were talking about black bear seasons basically like all year in
Yeah,
Alaska.
it's pretty dang close. I feel like anytime I print off my general season tickets, it's like June to June.
Yeah.
So, yep, we're obviously living in, just the most magical place on earth. And we're super fortunate to have so many freaking opportunities. It's just, I had somebody the other day giving me a hard time. They're like, why have you not gone on a sheep hunt yet? You were born and raised in Alaska. Like, what are you even doing with your life? And I was like, well, I also have to work.
Yeah.
My busiest time of year is August and September. So there's that.
Yeah, you're trying to make the meals so the rest of us can go out and hunt, right?
Yeah, totally. I get to take like January and February off.
Yeah. Yeah, and is that when you normally do your, like, when you did your Grand Canyon rafting trip and stuff, is that normally like in the middle of winter there when it's nice down south?
Yeah, totally. We just have to plan something to just get out of Alaska in those winter months. I think that this year, fingers crossed, I really think come December 15th, everybody's kind of done their online shopping. They're sort of sliding into Christmas. And then for a lot of businesses, things just shut down until that first week of January, right? Like it's all just quiet. So if I have my ideal schedule come mid-December to the first week of January, I'd like to be on a beach somewhere or in the desert or just somewhere warm, soaking up the sun like a freaking lizard.
Yeah. Well, yeah, with it being just about dark all the time during the winter in Alaska, like that's got to be, you have to be very strong-minded, I feel like, to get through an entire winter in Alaska.
Yeah, we're definitely getting to the point of like, okay, we will be successful business owners when we can like leave for the winter. The business can operate. We will just be gone. Because, yeah, the winters are definitely freaking hard. It gets to be 20 below where we are in Anchorage. And there were a lot of mornings this winter that I would get in my car at 5:30 and be like, it's 14 below and it's just a sheet of ice as far as you can see. And I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
This is just dumb.
Yeah, and then in the summertime it's the opposite where you're like, this is great. It's, it's nice out all the time, or not all the time, but sunlight and just, ample amount of sunlight, and being able to have that, and trying to find people to work during that time of year is a
Oh my
difficult
gosh.
feat, I remember.
It's so freaking challenging. Our staff went from, we had like a really solid team of 12. We shrunk to 7 in a matter of 2 weeks because everybody's like, oh, I'm taking the summer off. And I'm like, oh, you are? Like, do you realize that summer is our busiest time of year? So we had a few people that left for their summer jobs, like fly fish guiding or just taking the summer off to go play. And now we've slingshotted in a matter of 2 weeks back up to 15 people in the kitchen. And it is mind blowing for me. I walked in last Thursday and there was 15 people in the break room. And I was like, oh God, what have I done? There's so many people here.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm glad you're able to find people again to be able to work, which I know there's the challenging aspect of now having to train those people, and especially when you have, new people coming in. I remember that from my last job when we'd hire people and it was just a constant, like, you had to spend, you think when you hire people that it's like, okay, that takes X amount of time off my plate, just for talking sakes, but in reality it's like, oh, I have to train these people and get them up to speed and hope they stick around long enough so they can train somebody else when it's a process.
I know, it's so freaking nutty, but we're freaking grateful to have people that are actually, we're starting to see people move from out of state to Alaska and taking jobs at Heather's Choice. Because I think that there are folks who have always wanted to move to Alaska, and that's always been kind of like a bucket list thing or a dream for them to come up here. And we're starting to see that we're getting some imports, which is really fun and exciting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Do you find that the imports, do they tend to stay? Like once they move there, do they stay, or do they come in and be like, oh, this isn't what I thought? Or what have you seen from that? I'm always interested because it's so different.
It is so different. I believe that the people that I'm thinking of, that it's kind of polarizing. Either you come up here for a year and you're like, oh God, like winter, can't do it. And then poof, people are gone. Or you come up here and you just fall in love with it and it becomes just kind of a new reality. And yes, the winters are long, but if you ski, like then you've got world-class skiing out your back door. If you like cross country skiing, that can keep you busy. If you get a fat bike, you can ride bikes all winter. So it just takes a little bit more effort to stay active all year round. But man, I just feel like, I've said this for years, but I definitely think that Alaska is going to become a more and more desirable place for people to live and work in years to come, because we do still have so much opportunity to get outdoors, and it's not overpopulated and it's not impossible to live here from a cost of living perspective. And I just feel like there's a lot that we have that, again, we trade it for having 24 hours daylight in the summer and then no daylight in the winter time. But overall, I just think that Alaska is going to become, again, more of a desirable place to live in the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know, like, it's funny, my grandfather lived up in Alaska for a little while. I don't know if I ever told you that, but he was a fire jumper and spent time up there, and he every time I talk to him, like when I went there caribou hunting, he just like, he'd pull out his map and he's looking, he hasn't been there in a long time, but like, he's like, that was always his dream to live there. It's like to basically set their home there. But, that never happened, but he just talks about how beautiful Alaska was and all the different times. And yeah, I think it's probably challenging for people, right now being like, oh, it is so far away from everything else. But as everything else becomes extremely overpopulated in some of like the mountain areas and towns and stuff, I can see how that could potentially overflow into Alaska.
Yeah, I won't be surprised. And again, in the next 5 or 10 years, that we start seeing people moving, from Boise, Bend, Bozeman, like those places that are
Hmm.
right now super hot commodities. Those folks are going to get sick of it and are going to say, okay, where's my next spot that I can, find a place of my own and go roam and play and not feel like I'm battling the crowds to get outside.
Yeah. Hey, maybe I need to just beat the crowds and just jump, instead of going somewhere out west, just go straight to Alaska and then be a resident there. I can hunt sheep, I can hunt bears, I can hunt moose, all these different things. I don't know.
I mean, I feel like I've been telling you this for years, but someday you'll listen to me.
You told me a lot of things and I eventually listen. It just takes me a while, Heather.
Yeah. Yeah, like sleeping. I've been telling you for 6 years that you need to get more sleep, and it sounds like you're finally doing it.
Yeah. No, yeah, you told me first, I think it was moving to Alaska, and then about going full time with the podcast, and I needed to sleep more. Yeah, you've been coaching me along the way, and it normally takes me a couple years to like get what you're saying, understand it, and then commit to it, but I've done it. It
Yeah,
just takes a little bit.
yeah, I'm the same way. I'm so freaking stubborn. It takes me a long ass time for things to settle in, and I'm like, okay, I'll try
Yeah.
it.
So what's been going on up at Heather's Choice? I mean, just recently before my bear hunt, Heather's Choice went through like basically a full rebrand, if that's the right way to I guess explain it. Brand new packaging, some new meal options, all those things. Sounds like you're growing. It's really exciting. Again, from the beginning, seeing Heather's Choice in, was it 2015 or what?
14 is when I
2014.
started. It'll be 8 years next month. I'm like, oh God, I'm old.
I didn't say it, you did.
Yeah, I know, 34. I'm like, oh my gosh. It is crazy even just to think of that. Like when I started Heather's Choice, I was 26. I was like, I have no idea what I was thinking. I was just like, oh, neat. Here, I'm gonna get a Shopify website and turn it on and see what happens. And now here we are 8 years later.
Isn't that crazy though? But like I think about it, uh, you know, if you look back at probably all the challenges that you came, to this point, and you look back at it and you're like, all right, if I would have known these things now, I probably wouldn't have done it. Is that
No
how you
freaking
feel?
way. Yeah, I would have like turned and run the other way, just been like, no, I can't. But we've done it. That's why you don't get to know how hard it's going to be. Otherwise, you would never start.
Yep. I can relate to that, and I think that's why I not to go down a long tangent here, but like that I feel like with entrepreneurs, I've noticed that like a lot of the ones that are like good and successful and even like locally, they are people that just sometimes they just have enough information to go with it and kind of just believe in it and don't, stew on all the little details up front, because otherwise you'll just eventually kind of put yourself into a corner and be like, not doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I relate entrepreneurship to my athletic background a lot, where in college, I joined the crew team without knowing anything about crew, right? Just being kind of in this fanciful state of like, oh, it would be so cool to be in that varsity eight boat and to win a national championship. Like I had such a clear vision of what I wanted as my outcome. And I didn't know any of the details of like, what is a catch? What's a good erg time? What, like, how often do I have to train? What do I have to eat? How many times do I have to go to practice? Like there's all these little details that I didn't know, and I actually didn't need to know all those details, right? Like I knew what my end goal was. I had a coach that I really trusted and believed in, and all I had to do was simply just like show up and do the thing each day. So I think that that's a really good approach to building a business, is having that clear vision of like where you want to go, where do you want to get to, but not feeling like you need to know every single detail and every single step that you're going to take along the way.
Yeah, no, I think that's such a good point, and it's the same way. Like even for hunting, like if looking back at like getting into elk hunting, and I was like, oh, I just want to go hunt elk. I want to shoot an elk. I want to have that experience. I want to bring the meat back home. That was just my goal. That was my clear goal. And then I kind of figured it out along the way. And it took me 4 years to do that. And I was like, man, there was a lot. It basically changed like my whole life's path on like figuring these things out. But I'm glad that I kind of just, kind of skimmed over some of those details up front and was just like, all right, this is, what my goal is, and I'll figure out the details along the way. And I've kind of tried to take that application to a lot of different things and, not make stupid decisions. It's not like, I want to start this business that's, not going to be profitable basically, but you know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. It's just people will let those details and not having every piece of the picture stop them from getting started. We know that for sure.
Yeah.
And I definitely, thankfully, did not know what I was getting myself into. So here we are.
Yeah. No, that's funny. So with that being said, Heather's Choice being around for like nearly 8 years now, how has it been lately, and what have some of the changes that you've been seeing as the company, and kind of what direction you heading with it?
Yeah. So I think it was January of 2020. I was headed to another Grand Canyon trip, and I was sitting on the airplane just kind of ruminating on like kind of a new icon that I wanted for Heather's Choice, right? Like you think of those brands like Nike and Adidas and Apple, and they all just have this like really iconic figure, right? Or this little emblem that you see it and you immediately think of that brand, right? And it just lends itself to having some real brand equity. And it's just, I mean, I keep using the word, but it's iconic, right? And I wanted Heather's Choice to have sort of that almost mascot that if you saw it anywhere, you'd be like, oh, that's Heather's Choice. And so I started sketching in my journal and sort of ruminating on like, okay, maybe it's an animal, and it'd be cool if it was an Alaskan animal, and like, what are the different Alaskan animals that sort of are emblematic of what Heather's Choice is? And pretty quickly I settled on the Arctic fox. And it's actually, this is a funny story. So at the 2017-18 Western Hunting Expo, that's when I was first introduced to Chris Porter at Go Hunt. And I talked to Chris for probably 30 minutes or so, and he just looked at me and he's like, sounds like you're pretty scrappy. And for whatever reason, that word scrappy has really kind of resonated for me, of like, that's sort of who I am as a person. Like I will just always find a way, and it would, regardless of how many resources I have, like I'll just make it happen. Right. And so the scrappiness really kind of tied in with choosing the Arctic fox as the new Heather's Choice icon, right? Like you think of a fox and you think of something that's kind of sly. They're kind of clever. They're not the biggest animal in the kingdom, but like they will feed themselves one way or another, right? And they will just survive. And so this is January of 2020. It took me a year and a half to like really kind of finesse this iconic Heather's Choice Arctic fox logo. And I ended up working with a graphic designer, Elias Carlson, who works with the Modern Huntsman. And he helped me really bring this Heather's Choice icon to life. And from there, with this sort of like new icon that I wanted to bring into the Heather's Choice world, also came a full rebrand. So completely changing the look, sort of changing the feel, and really changing the packaging. And I was like, well, if we're going to change the packaging, we might as well change some of the recipes too. So we did a pretty serious business overhaul at the end of 2021, and it pretty well encompassed my life for the second and or no the third and fourth quarter of 2021, and then we finally launched it in March of 22, and I couldn't be happier with all of the changes that we made.
Oh, that's awesome. And it's really excited to be able, it was really exciting for me to be able to see it and I can imagine the amount of work that goes into a full rebrand. Like your logo's on everything, all the packaging, all the everything that's just involved with it. Like and then trying to get people to recognize the new, packaging and logo and everything else. But that's cool. What what were some of the new meals that I got to take some of the new meals on the bear hunt, but I want to kind of have you explain it and some of the new meals and why you came up with some of those recipes.
Totally. So in 2020, also, we had done a really fun sort of marketing campaign where we had our staff pick up the phone and call 25 of our top customers. So 10 of us, we covered 250 people that we just literally picked up the phone and cold called them and was like, hey, Beau, like my name is Mike and I'm a production assistant here at Heather's Choice. Like, happy holidays. I wanted to take a minute and ask you three quick questions. Your favorite Heather's Choice product and why, your least favorite Heather's Choice product and why, and then also what do you want to see from us in the new year? And consistently throughout that, there were products that people, that were their favorites. Smoked sockeye salmon chowder being one of them, blueberry cinnamon breakfast, blueberry almond packaroons, grass-fed bison chili, like those ones always were at the top of the heap. There were products like the cherry cocoa nib breakfast that people weren't as crazy about, or the spice cocoa packaroons that just like weren't a favorite. And then everybody wanted more variety, like bar none, just more variety was like the thing that our customers wanted. So we set out to release a grass-fed beef shepherd's pie, which is now quickly becoming our best-selling meal. I selfishly really wanted an Indian curry. So we have a spinach curry with chicken and rice that is really inspired by chicken sog, which if you've never had chicken sog, it is unbelievably good. And we released a whole line of oatmeals and people have been going freaking bonkers for those. And then we also released a new vegetarian dish, which is a lentil vegetable soup that I would argue is the best vegetarian, vegan friendly backpacking meal on the market. It's so perfect. And the best part about all of this is I did not develop these recipes. One of my team members did, which is just like, hallelujah.
Yeah.
This is the benefit of having a team is you can like hand projects to people and they can do them even better than you could have. And our team member, Brittany, did all of the recipe development and she freaking knocked it out of the park with everything, which is really cool.
Oh man, that is awesome. And so the vegetable lentil soup, I really like that one, even though it doesn't have any meat in it. Like it is very good and filling at the same time. So I mean, for anyone that's listened to this my podcast for a while, you've heard me talk about it. But for me, I had Lyme's disease about 10 years ago, and then ended up turning into me having some allergies to both gluten and dairy. And Heather's Choice, that was what initially kind of like got me on the train before I knew you, before I tried it. It was like, oh, they have options that I can eat, and with a lot of these meals being able to be that way and be able to have, me be able to eat it and feel good after having it was just like, yeah, this is awesome. So you said, was it Brittany that developed the recipes? Is that what her name is? So
Yep.
how did she have like a background in doing this, or how did you trust her to take your baby and like do these meals?
Yeah. So we hired Brittany as a production assistant, which is where, basically everybody starts when they come into Heather's Choice. And Brittany was like, oh, I went to culinary school. And I was like, "You did? Tell me more." And it just turns out like, she went to culinary school, thought that she was gonna, kind of work in the restaurant world.
All right, we're back again. Heather, I'm sorry, my free Zoom subscription apparently ran out, and they have now decided that I cannot do video podcasts over 40 minutes on here. So, uh, so I apologize for that, but they got me. I threw my credit card in, and I should be good to go from here on out.
See, these are all the details of entrepreneurship that, you wouldn't expect. It's like, dang it, I'm not profitable today. I had to
No.
give my credit card to Zoom.
I know. I was just like, and they get you with those deals too, that they got me with, oh, we're gonna give you half off this first year, and then when I see it hit my credit card next year, because I'll forget about it, it'll be like, wow, all right, I wasn't expecting that.
Totally.
Yeah, and the convenience factor of like, I know if I like did some research and looked around, like I could find a ways around it and probably do it free, but I was just like, you know what? Screw it. Just get it done. The amount of time I spend trying to save $1, I could have made 10. Sometimes
Yeah.
I'm learning that as another thing in entrepreneurship. So
Proud of you.
yeah, appreciate it. Well, anyways, you were just kind of finishing up there, talking about Brittany and how she had the culinary background and everything else to be able to develop some of these meals, and you kind of left, you took a little bit of that piece of you that you've been holding on with those meals and the recipes and everything, and were able to give that, to her and let her kind of run with that a little bit. And I know one of your goals with your business is to be able to kind of have it operate on its own as much as you love it. You also want some of your time back too.
Yeah, it's anytime that there are things in the business that are happening independent of me, it's music to my ears, because when you're running, this size of business, like, you physically can't do it all yourself, right? Like, I can't be the person mixing the packaroons, packing the packaroons, labeling the packaroons, moving them to the warehouse, filling the orders, generating new sales, marketing the packaroons, ordering the ingredients for them. Like, there's too much. So I think that that is a huge part of my evolution as an entrepreneur right now, is identifying all of the places that I end up becoming the bottleneck in my business, where, especially in the world of marketing right now, like, that is a place where I have to spend so much of my time on the financial side of the business and really working on the vision and kind of really stepping into the role of CEO. Like, I honestly don't have the bandwidth or like the time in my day to generate really great marketing content. And so that's the next piece that I really have to kind of let go of and take my hands off the wheel and let somebody else manage that side of the business. And so similarly with recipe development, like, I can make a bomb ass meal. I'm confident about that. If you come over to my house for dinner, like, I will get you fed and like you'll be happy and satisfied. When it comes to scaling up 40 gallons of marinara sauce and deciding how much salt you put in 40 gallons, like, that is not my area of expertise. Like, believe it or not, when you scale up recipes, it is not one to one. It's not like, for a gallon, you use a teaspoon of salt. For 40 gallons, you use 40 teaspoons. Like, it doesn't work like that. And so bringing in somebody else who really has the desire and the time and the ability to sort of finesse all of those recipes and get them up to scale, it's again, music to my ears. And I'm so grateful to have team members like that that are willing to take on those special projects and really own them.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's exciting to see it growing again, and just seeing the company growing, the meals growing. I mean, Heather's Choice meals have been in my pack since my first trip in 2016, and I don't see that changing. They've always had a spot in there and been good for me and my crew as we've been hunting, and it's been great to see it getting more popular across the board, and seeing others, sharing camps with people and seeing them, pull out Heather's Choice meals and everything. It's pretty exciting to be
That's
able to do that.
fun.
Yeah, definitely.
we should have a dairy-free oatmeal for you in the new year. So
Yeah. Oh,
we're still thinking of you.
are you? Okay. All
Mhm.
right. Is it
Yep.
the East Meets West edition? Like, is that what it is?
It should be. I can't believe that you and I haven't done that yet. Like, why?
All
I have
right.
a dehydrator. I have a kitchen. All I need you to do is come up and put your stamp of endorsement on
Yep.
something.
Don't ask me for any like, okay, this is what I need. No, it's just gonna be one of your meals that has like my endorsement on it. Yeah, we'll go with
Perfect. It'll
that.
just have a big mustache on the front of it.
I don't know if that's a good marketing ploy or not. Maybe for people that know of me, but outside, people might get creeped out.
It's still a huge joke within Heather's Choice of like, I don't know how many team members we have that have these pretty aggressive mustaches and they all look like deputies, and they keep giving Brad a hard time. Like, Brad, when are you going to grow out your mustache? And Brad's like, well, if you give me the rest of the year, I might be able to get it done.
well, well, hey, there is a trend with mustaches right now, but I was doing it before it was cool, so I'm
Yeah,
gonna hang my hat on that one.
you have evidence to support that for sure.
Yeah, I haven't shaved this since I started the podcast, so I mean I trimmed
Committed.
it, but I haven't, I haven't went clean shaven with it.
Yeah, it's very on brand for you.
Yeah, there's no choice at this point until when East Meets West goes down. I'll shave it off. I'll kind of hide and start a new life. But until then, this is kind of who I am.
I
uh,
dig it.
but anyways, let's change gears a little bit here, Heather. So as we're recording this in middle to late July, we're getting pretty close to hunting season, and I want to just kind of talk about what people should be thinking about, as their nutrition for going on hunts and adventures, but then it just kind of overall because, from talking to you, in the past and everything, it's more of a lifestyle than, preparing for one event, but kind of wanted to talk about some, major, maybe let's start off with maybe some major misconceptions, with food and how your body reacts to it. And then kind of diving into a little bit more of the details of it.
Yeah. I'm so glad that we get to cover this topic because I feel like I've been in the world of nutrition for so freaking long. It's probably been a solid 12 years now since I've been kind of a practicing nutritionist. And gosh, I take it for granted. Like, I assume that people know that the quality of fats that they eat have a direct impact on their health and wellness. I assume that people know that they need to get a certain amount of protein in order to sustain their lean muscle mass. And I assume that people know that carbohydrates aren't all bad for you and that like there's a lot to be said for getting adequate carbohydrates to fuel activity. But again, that's all an assumption on my part. And it seems like the general public still needs a lot of help and support and guidance around what it means to eat healthy and what that can do for you. And so I personally just continue to kind of come back to the same things over and over again as I'm reflecting on my own nutrition plan or I'm reflecting on the development of the Heather's Choice menu. Like, what are kind of our core tenets of healthy nutrition? And the first thing I'll say is that nutrition is wholly individualized, right? Like, there's as many diets as there is people on the planet.
Yeah.
So that we're not trying to create these like blanket statements of like, here's the perfect diet and this is what everybody should do. And I will say that there are just there's pieces that you can just hang your hat on, right? You can kind of come back to them over and over and over again and say like, this still remains true. And again, if we were to go through the three that I mentioned, the quality of fats that you eat, like it can't be stressed enough that eating poor quality fats, things like canola oil, soybean oil, grapeseed oil, like any of the refined vegetable oils, like if you are eating really pro-inflammatory fats, it's going to have a direct impact on your health at the cellular level. And I really feel like for the mountain hunter, this is something that should not be overlooked, right? Because you're training your ass off all year, getting up early, going to the gym, or in your case, like going to the gym in the middle of the day and putting in dedicated hours to actually break down your muscle fibers and telling your body, hey, we need to break everything down so that we can build it back stronger because we're going to go into the mountains and push ourselves to our limits. If you aren't giving your body the building blocks that it needs to actually recover from those workouts, like you're actually just putting more stress on your system and making yourself less healthy by going and doing those workouts and then not giving your body the nutrition it needs to recover. Or if you're going and exercising super hard and putting in a bunch of work and then pouring a bunch of like really pro-inflammatory foods on top of it, your body is having to work doubly hard in order to recover from those workouts and actually get stronger. And so it's just clearly I care about this way too much. It doesn't make any damn sense to put in all of that effort and to not also care about what you're eating on a daily basis, if that makes sense.
No, no, it definitely does. And the seed oil, comment, but, heard about that a lot. And does that, so you'd mentioned some of those things, and this is for me not understanding this portion, so it might sound like a dumb question, but is olive oil that's still in that group of oils where it's like kind of bad fats?
Thankfully, no. So the bad fats are really the ones that you really want to be careful of are really those industrial seed oils that are really high in omega-6s, whereas olive oil actually comes from the fruit of an olive and is, pressed from that. Whereas if we look at something like soybean oil, it's a highly refined, highly pro-inflammatory fat that is just, again, it's rampant. You see it everywhere. Like if you were to look at the Heather's Choice menu as an example, you would see extra virgin olive oil in the ingredient list. That shit is so freaking expensive that from a profit standpoint, it would make a hell of a lot more sense for us just to sub in canola oil, right? Because it's way cheaper, it's way easier to get, it's like widely available. And again, from my nutrition standpoint, I'm like, that would be defeating the purpose of what we're trying to do here. Like, and so thankfully the good oils that you can use again and again are things like olive oil, coconut oil, grass-fed butter, lard, animal fats. Like it always takes people by surprise that things like, grass-fed lard or bear fat or whatever, like those highly saturated fats, it surprises people that those are the fats that we really want in our diet. But if we think about it and we think about it from the standpoint of like pro-inflammatory versus anti-inflammatory, those really saturated fats that are solid at room temperature, like coconut oil, like lard, like butter, those ones are less prone to oxidation and less prone to rancidity. So when you're cooking with them or ingesting them, you have less of a chance of like ending up with a bunch of rancid oxidized fats in your system that are just wreaking havoc on your cellular health.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I guess I don't know if it was you that had told me that in the past or anything about olive oil and coconut oil, which is like I take the extra packets with me. Like I'll put the coconut oil in the buckwheat breakfast in the morning, and I'll put the olive oil in the dinners, at the end of the day, just to add additional calories and fats and stuff to that. My big problem is I have a very guilty snacking problem with regular potato chips. Like I don't snack on just about anything else, but I have a serious problem with that. And I know it doesn't make me feel good. I know all those things. It's just that's my weak area. Like I feel like I'm decently dialed across the board on everything else, but when it comes to that, it's like it's a problem. And like when I go hunting, like I obviously don't carry chips in with me when I'm backpacking, but I did find a way to do that. Someone told me he shouldn't have told me that, but that's like the first thing I want when I come back to the truck, So it's
Totally.
so
And
bad.
I will just encourage you to like go to the organic food section and get the ones that are made with avocado oil. And then you can eat potato chips to your heart's content, but
Ooh.
just something with a better quality oil, please.
Okay. All right, Heather. I'll again, this might take a year or so to listen to you like I normally do, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what are some other good fats that people could consume?
Yeah. If you don't eat fish on the regular, if you don't live in Alaska and have a freaking freezer full of it like we do and eat fish 2 or 3 times a week, just supplementing with some sort of fish oil is, and again, like you want to make sure that it's a good quality. Like I typically buy fish oil that is in a bottle, it's in a dark bottle, it lives in the fridge. It's not going to sit there for eternity. You're going to eat it and then get a new one, but some sort of fish oil would be a really good one for everybody to have in their diet, as far as I'm concerned. Whole eggs, the better quality eggs you can get, the better quality of fats and the more nutritional value you'll get from those eggs. The choline that you get from the whole egg yolk is really critical for overall health. I've mentioned grass-fed dairy. I know that's not really in your camp, but even something like ghee for you might be kind of interesting to play around with and see, because it has all of the milk proteins removed and you're just getting that really rich, delicious golden fat. I would be curious to see if your body tolerates ghee at all.
Yeah, I just wrote that down in my notes here. I'm gonna try that out.
Yeah, you're gonna freaking dig it. And then we mentioned olive oil, coconut oil, raw nuts. Like this is not something, if you are somebody that's like, Heather, I eat healthy 99% of the time, and I'm going on a backcountry trip and I'm going to have roasted salted almonds, like not a huge deal in the grand scheme of things. But if you're somebody who's at home and you're actively trying to follow a more anti-inflammatory diet, trying to maybe shed some weight, maybe trying to decrease the aches and pains that you feel, all of those things, then buying raw almonds or raw cashews or walnuts, whatever, would be a better choice than roasted and salted. I could go down the rabbit hole of like, you know, uh, sort of satiety and like appetite regulation and all of that, but we'll save that for another podcast.
Yeah.
Also, again, just those really good quality animal fats. We don't think about it too often, but the fat that is on, let's say, a really nice steak is also really similar to the fat that you have on your own body, right? Like your body can metabolize that fat really similarly. So people have really been pushed to stay away from the fat that is in animal proteins. And it's actually really unfounded in terms of like heart health, cholesterol, all of that. So for you guys as hunters, being able to render some of that bear fat, or if you like the fat that you get off of your deer or elk or moose or whatever the case may be, that's going to be some of the healthiest fat that you're going to get on the planet.
Interesting. And I've always eaten the fat on steaks. Like I don't know. I just always liked it, and kind of always looked at kind of weird for eating that. But I was kind of upset my bear this year didn't have a ton of fat, being a spring bear. I got some off of it, but not very much, because he, just coming out of hibernation and everything. I was like so excited for that portion, and didn't think of it from the standpoint being in the spring they wouldn't have nearly as much as they do in the fall time.
Totally. I have my heart set on a big, fat, roly-poly blueberry bear. I want to see like the blue fat. Like that would be so rad.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely would. I remember I had bear meat when I was up in Alaska with, was it you or Brad that shot a bear, and then I had some bear breakfast sausage or something that you
Yeah.
made. It was really good. And I hadn't had much bear, prior to that, just never, I've never killed one personally, so I hadn't had it. And now that I shot a bear, like, man, I love it. Like I'm almost out of ground meat already from, and
Right.
it was just 2 months ago that I shot it. But anyways, back to talking about the fats and everything there. What about so I just think it's one of those things that people don't think about as much. We worry about now getting in shape and everything for hunting is more popular, and that's super important. But like the fuel that you're putting in there, and I learned that from, well, with my body being a little bit more reactive to different foods, I understand that and paid attention to it. But being able to recover when you have the right foods, and like I have a whole, like, as I have a gear list for anything else, I have a food list, and I have it all kind of broken down, and I've kind of fine-tuned that over the years of what I need to be able to feel good after hiking 10 or 12 miles during a day, so your muscles aren't completely sore the next day. And I'm assuming that's kind of the combination of the fats and the proteins and some of the carbohydrates give you some of that energy there. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think that it's just important for people to think about nutrition as those legitimate building blocks, right? So if you go and you hike, let's say you put in a 12-mile day, let's say you burn, I don't know, well, 150, probably closer to like 200 calories for each mile, right? Assuming you've got to carry a heavy pack and you're going uphill. So you might burn through 2,000 so calories in that 12-mile march. In addition to that, you're burning just the regular calories that your body needs to operate on the daily. So your basal metabolic rate is probably 1,600. So 1,600 plus 2,000, you're at 3,600 calories. Like, that's a shit ton of food for you to eat day in and day out. And I think that that's where people get kind of into trouble, is that they're expending so much on these mountain trips, but the quality and the quantity of food that they're bringing is subpar, right? Like maybe they're only eating 2,500 calories, but burning 3,600. The quality of those 2,500 calories is likely mostly carbohydrates, a smattering of protein, and then a bunch of poor quality fats, assuming that they're eating like gas station fare, right?
Yeah.
And then by day 4 and 5, they're wondering why they feel like absolute death. And it's because they haven't been giving their body the protein that it needs to rebuild and recover, the fats that it needs to maintain good hormone levels and good energy levels. And they're not replenishing their muscles with complex carbohydrates, or just not even complex, but just like enough carbohydrates to refuel the tank and actually get their glycogen levels topped up again so that they can go and do it again the next day. And I just feel like it's obviously I'm biased because I have a food company and like I'm trying to sell backpacking food, but like it's so infuriating that people will spend tens of thousands of dollars on gear and then show up for these trips unhealthy, out of shape, and with a bunch of poor quality food in tow, and wonder why like they don't feel awesome when they get out there and they can't cover the miles and they can't carry their pack and they're achy and they're tired and they don't sleep well. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, all of this stuff starts at home. It starts like months prior to you going on these trips. And it's all about how you take care of yourself on a daily basis with fueling and learning what your body does and doesn't tolerate. And clearly I'm just on my soapbox, just yammering, but I care about this stuff so freaking much, but partially also because I'm in a relationship with Brad, who's like a tall, slender, 6'2", 160-pound, like born with a six-pack person, somebody who like doesn't have to worry about gaining weight ever a day in his life. And even for somebody like him, the quality of food and the consistency that he like eats on a daily basis will dramatically impact his attitude, right? Like Brad who's had breakfast versus Brad who has not had breakfast are two different people, right? So like this is not limited to you having a successful hunt. This is like you every single day showing up in your life either as the best version of you or kind of a subpar version of you, depending on how you're fueling yourself.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I notice it myself, like when I'm traveling and if I don't get the best food in my body or I'm just grabbing quick stuff for here or there, like I I feel tired all the time, like I'm just kind of a little bit crabbier, just kind of just not in a good mood and I don't know. I just really have paid a lot of attention to that because it hasn't like in with working and being able to keep your mind on task and being able and then with hunts like all of those things like for me personally I made that decision years ago that I need to really focus on these things and make sure that it's and just paying attention like you said everybody's body is going to be different like exactly how you're going to feel based off certain foods is not the same that I'm going to feel but there's those how do I want to put it those kind of like base like foundations that you can kind of follow along with and move from there but just paying attention to your body is so important if when you go on these hunts and you're feeling like shit all the time think about it for once yeah maybe you do need to be in better shape but at the same time a lot of that can be coming from your food and I really learned it when I started doing longer hunts like over 7 days it was like that was when it became extremely important to make sure. And like for me, I need to have close to 4,000 calories a day when I'm on these backpack hunts to feel good. Anything less than that, I remember the one time I was doing like 22 to 2,400 that was in my kit and I got sick at the end of it. I was just run down. I lost like 15 pounds. So it was terrible. And
Yeah.
and there's so many other stressors on your body at that time. You need to be able to have that fuel that helps you with those. You know, doesn't make that an additional stressor, I guess, too.
Totally. And that's where, again, I feel like if people don't have a good grasp of what their body needs on the daily basis at home, like as an example, not probably, I know I eat 2,200 calories a day just in my normal everyday life. So if that ends up being the amount I take with me on a multi-day backpack hunt, like I'm going to suffer,
Yeah.
right? Because like if we did that quick math, you're probably burning in excess like another 1,200 to 2,000 calories a day, and that surplus is going to add up really damn quick.
Yeah, no, definitely. So what are your thoughts on, you were talking about eggs being like a good thing to eat, and I'm a big proponent of eggs. Breakfast is my favorite meal, and I eat a lot of eggs. But what about bacon? What's your thought on that?
Yeah. So as somebody who's eaten a lot of bacon, I'm like pro bacon all day. I think that my other piece though is just quality,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
Like if and it's not, I won't say it's easy to go find like heritage, pasture raised, high quality bacon. Like that's just it takes a bit more effort and it's not something you're going to find likely for us here in Alaska. If I go shop at a local Fred Meyer, like I'm not going to find it there. So if you are somebody who eats bacon on the regular, it pays dividends to care about the sourcing of it and to maybe look at something like a butcher box or to shop at a Whole Foods or to find a local rancher. Just it would be worth the effort because a lot of the calories coming from bacon are from fat, and the quality of the fat is going to be contingent on like the health of that animal that you're eating. So
Gotcha.
even somebody like Force of Nature Meats would be another one to look into. So I think where you guys are in the lower 48 and the access that you have to kind of like mail order foods, bacon would be one that I would put on my list of like, I order it from such and such a brand and get it delivered monthly.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna have to do. I'm a big baking guy, but I do also live in the middle of nowhere, so like I don't have a lot of options from a grocery store standpoint and those types of things. And I've thought about that for the amount of bacon that I do consume, which is alarming probably, but it of improving the quality of that. And that was one of the questions that I wanted to ask you on here with that. But what is your thoughts with like So we were talking before we started recording here, but like with fasting and like intermittent fasting, that's something in the last few years I feel like has become more popular. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked this question because it kind of brings me back to that whole statement of men and women are different. Like everybody's body is different, and it's not a one size fits all. So if Beau figures out that intermittent fasting works well for him, that doesn't make it true for me as a 34-year-old woman. So I think intermittent fasting is really fantastic for people who are like metabolically healthy overall, right? So like I would consider you in that camp of somebody that's probably within the range of like a healthy body weight, getting a good amount of sleep, getting some exercise. Like intermittent fasting is an additional stressor on the system. And so that's where if you have somebody that is doing crazy shift work, has a poor quality diet, is under a lot of stress, is doing a lot of high intensity exercise on top of it, and then you throw intermittent fasting into the mix, it's just like, blah, your central nervous system just like can't handle it all, right? Whereas if you take somebody like yourself who's now newly self-employed, you can set your own schedule, you can go to the gym and probably spend your time there leisurely, you can get enough good sleep, you eat good quality food. The stress of intermittent fasting on your system is probably a positive stress rather than so much stress that it's just going to break the camel's back, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So for men specifically, I do think intermittent fasting can be a really powerful tool. I think where people really screw it up is they won't eat. But then when they do eat, it's like they go hard and they eat way too much. And like digestively, they're just like, oh my God, what did I just do? And so the amount of stress that you're putting on your digestive system by trying to eat an entire day's worth of calories in a 6 to 4 hour window, I think is something that you have to be careful of. And I will also see people who, again, don't have any grasp on the type of calories they're eating or how many they're eating during that feeding window. And again, if I eat 2,200 calories a day as maintenance calories, and I start intermittent fasting, but now during my feeding window, I'm eating 2,600 calories a day, 400 calories. It's going to take me like 10 days to gain a pound of fat. So like every 10 days, I'm going to gain weight, even though I'm only eating 4 hours a day, but I'm eating in a caloric surplus, and like that shit still adds up over time. And so I think that's where intermittent fasting can become a little bit slippery for people, is you assume that you're eating less calories because you're eating it in a shorter window of time. But if we actually tracked what you were eating, we might find out like, nope, you're actually eating more than you would have had you spaced them out in like a regular cadence throughout the day. And it's not getting you the desired result that you want. So where I should have started this freaking rant was, Beau, what is your goal?
Yeah. So yeah, that makes sense. Like for me, so I had kind of played around with it. I don't know if like I'm even doing it correctly, but it was more so of like I had always done like my workouts fast, somewhat fasted. Basically I didn't eat before because I was doing it early in the morning. I don't know if it's even really considered fasting at that point, but I was doing it, before I would eat. But now with being self-employed, like I'll get up and I'll do work for the first 2 or 3 hours, and then I'll go to the gym, and then I'll come back and, then make my breakfast at like, 10:30 or 11 in the morning. And I kind of have like an 8 hour window where, that I've been eating. At first it was kind of difficult because I was so used to eating at like, 6 in the morning, basically having my bacon and eggs. And now like, kind of pushing that back. But what I've learned, and there's a couple things that could be, involved in this, but I've learned that my energy levels seem to be better. I also have learned, I started doing this originally because I'd go on hunt and not want to make breakfast as soon as I got up because it would be so early. and I would just take my meal with me in my stove. And then once I got to a glassing spot or whatever, I would do that. But it required me to be able to need energy first thing in the morning to be able to go. But I didn't want to just, take in 600 calories right off the bat and then try to go hike. I wanted to be able to do that without eating at first. And that was kind of, trying to get myself to burn those fats basically that's in my body already to do so. So my goal is, to be able to do that and also have, better sustained energy levels. But in addition to that, I have, we mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I've been getting more sleep. And that's something that you've told me for years, that my 4.5 to 5 hours of sleep a night wasn't enough. And I've really put a lot of effort into that now, and been getting around 7 hours of sleep a night, which is like boom for me. That feels so good. And that's kind of how I've been changing things up a little bit and in my, I guess, overall health.
I think it's awesome. And that what you're trying to do is sort of train your metabolism, right? To be able to access fat for fuel. And
Yeah.
that's where something like intermittent fasting is really useful. I think one way that you can kind of bolster that a little bit that I'd be curious for you to try is putting something like coconut oil in your coffee in the morning and sort of like kick starting that fat metabolism a little bit. And it would just be something to play around with and see, like, if I start supplementing with MCT oil or coconut oil in my coffee, do I notice any sort of increased benefit? And the other piece I wanted to comment on is when you eat food, like a 600-calorie breakfast, ideally your body needs to go into sort of a rest and digest phase, right? The blood is shunted from your extremities to your core so that your body can actually digest and assimilate all the food you've just eaten. So it makes a lot of sense that you would actually have potentially more cognitive function and a little bit better energy in those morning hours without eating first, right? Because like you're just sort of mentally sharp and like you can just sort of get to action to doing whatever it is you need to do, like hiking or getting to work. Whereas once you eat a meal, ideally there's a period of rest after that where you're letting your body actually, again, digest and assimilate the food you've just eaten. So I just kind of wanted to confirm the strategy that you have of like, I'm going to get up, I'm going to get to work on something, and then I'm going to move. And then when I actually have the time to eat a meal and to let my body actually process that, that's when I'm going to sit down and eat my first meal of the day.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And one of the other things that, and it was from listening to a podcast. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Andrew Huberman. Have you seen any of his
Mm-mm.
stuff? I think he was on Jocko's podcast or something, and he was talking about too, like he's big on different sleep aspects and everything, and he was talking about when you get up in the mornings, like the best thing to do is get bright light, or sunlight is more the best thing in the first like 30 minutes of when you're up, to train your body that you're awake and not make you drowsy throughout the day if you kind of like just stay in a dark room or you're not getting any light, basically. And then wait at least 30 minutes before you start taking caffeine. And that's kind of been one of the things. So like what I'll do is like, at least this time of year where it's, light at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'll go outside and I'll shoot my bow for a little bit and try to get some of that, sunlight in, and then come in and have, coffee or whatever to be able to kind of get me going in the mornings. And that has been helping me too, as something
Yeah.
also.
The only other thing I would say, Bo, that is worth looking into for you, if your goal from exercising was to gain more lean muscle mass, right? And I'm just like making a blanket assumption that most people who are exercising are like trying to put on some more muscle. It might be worth seeing about supplementing with some amino acids before that workout, especially because you're going in fasted.
Yeah.
And what I heard recently, a product that was recommended to me is called HumaPro. And I haven't used it yet because I don't work out fasted. But supposedly, just again, if we think about the muscle breakdown of exercise, assuming that you're doing some pretty aggressive weight training, you don't want your body to be going into a catabolic state, in the hours leading up to your workout and then getting further catabolic through that weight training and then potentially not eating until 30, 45 minutes, an hour after the workout. And so you have such an extended amount of time that your body doesn't have access to, free floating amino acids. So just going to lob it out there, unsolicited plug.
Yeah.
That you might want to consider some sort of BCAA supplementation before that fasted workout, just to potentially increase the amount of muscle mass that you're able to retain or gain from working out fasted.
Interesting. I wrote that down as a note as well. In one thing I feel like with my workouts that has changed, and anybody that's listened to the podcast has heard me have Todd on, but Todd Bumgardner, do you know Todd, Heather?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Todd is the one that's training me now, and like I go through his programs, and it's different than what I've done in the past. That's all been very high intensity type, workouts, and I feel so much better with his workouts, and not built off of just, high intensity kind of killing your body, more so of, building that work capacity over time, and, building that strength. And I feel like that's put less stress on my body versus what I've, had in the past as well. So that's just something else that has been a change, I guess, since even the last time we've talked, and everything. I feel like it's been helping out overall, but it's definitely a process, of figuring out again how your body reacts to things, food, workouts, all those different things, and seeing how it was. And I don't remember if you and I talked about this at all, like off air, but that last year when I went into my hunt and I ended up with altitude sickness, altitude sickness was the result of me going into it unhealthy, basically, is what it was. I ended up getting sick, and my body was run down. I'd lost like 32 pounds, something like that. And
Dude.
yeah, and I attribute that to stress and lack of sleep for the most part, just because I was doing both jobs and staying up late and not, and just putting a lot of additional stress on my body. And yeah, and that really kind of put me in a tough spot there. I will put it that way. And so I've paid attention to that a lot more this year as I was going into it. So
God, what all did you do to recover from that? Because that's a really significant weight swing for you. That's probably 20% of your body weight that you lost.
yeah. So I went from, I was 205 pounds down to 175. Or no, 205 pounds down to 172 pounds, so 33 pounds. And my good weight is like 190 pounds. So like I was, that's actually where I'm at right now. And I've been able to maintain that through the entire summer. And, even doing some of these workout programs and everything else, that's my goal, is to like stay in that 185 to 190 range. And, yeah, so afterwards, that's when I really kickstarted the whole sleep thing, trying to recover there and just do what I could to, kind of build myself back up and eating healthy. And then also, it's hard to say not get stressed, but you know what I mean? Like just, folks that understanding some things can wait, and, focusing on the priorities and doing that. And that kind of helped me there. I mean, so I ended up with, before that hunt, I didn't realize this till afterwards, but I ended up with mono and also a sinus infection going into it from just being so run down. And then those effects, lasted for months after that. So like even during hunting season, I wasn't feeling good. Even after I got back from my Western hunt, I still wasn't feeling good. And I just kind of slowed down on the workouts and everything and just waited till I recovered. And then, I feel great now.
Yeah, I just feel like that it's a really good lens to look through of like the body can only handle so much stress, right? So like if you have a lot of stress from work, then it would behoove you to decrease the exercise stress, the central nervous system stress, the nutritional stress that you're putting on yourself. And I think that that's where people, as you've experienced, you get into trouble when you assume that you can handle stress from all angles. And like it tends to come in waves, right? Of like, I'm just going to work out harder. I don't have time to eat well. I got to get back to work. I don't have time to sleep. And like, poof, it's just the perfect storm of like your body breaking down and not being able to handle it all. And I feel like for the people who listen to your podcast, like, in my opinion, nutritional stress should never be one of the stresses you're putting on your body,
Yeah.
right? Like that is something that you can control, and it can be one less thing that your body is having to respond and adapt to all the time if you get your nutrition dialed in and like stick to some sort of routine that your body responds well to.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And it was a big learning, lesson for me from, going through that and that's I've loved working with Todd so much because he like is one of the things that he does is like when I go to events, like I go to Total Archery Challenge and I'm running a booth and I'm, working my booth for 14 hours a day. He's like, "Hey, we're not going to do your workouts. Don't worry about trying to get your workouts in. Just walk for 20, 30 minutes. Do, something to get you moving a little bit, but not." He's like, don't worry about it. It's better for you to recover. You doing these workouts just to stay on track is really going to be more detrimental than it is helpful for you. And that's been like, because I just get in my own head all the time of like, just hard headed of like, I need to do this. I need to fit this in. I need to make it work. And sometimes that can be bad, and same thing at that time. I'd be up at like, midnight finishing an email blast or like editing a podcast and, I have all these lights and computer screens and all this stuff and then try to go lay in bed and your mind's just like going everywhere and not turned off. And I think, and that's my example. Anyone that's listening to this probably has their own example of something that, is adding additional stress or with food or with work or whatever else that can be, it can be relatable in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we just have to remember that, we got to take care of ourselves, and we can do that through diet and exercise and going on these backcountry trips and getting outside and all of that. But, it's always the dose makes the poison.
Yeah, definitely. And well, Heather, I apologize for taking a lot more time than I'd scheduled for you here. I should have assumed that was going to be the case. And then
No, it's always good when we get to hang out.
yeah, and some of the technical difficulties there that I've been having a few technical difficulties lately on the podcast, but they've all been different. This was the first time that Zoom kicked me off, but nonetheless, it's a learning thing. So thank you for sticking along with me there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to have you back in Alaska and get to hang out in real life again soon.
Yeah, I know, definitely. And hopefully maybe at one of these shows or something over the winter, we can link up again. Yeah, so now that, again, I'll be able to do some more of that, some of those shows and everything, we'll be able to link up there and hang out in that aspect too.
Yeah, will we see you at Western Hunting Expo, you think?
I'm thinking I want to make that one happen. It's always hard because it hits the Great American Outdoor Show in Pennsylvania, which I'm always working that. But I want to make time to come out to Western Hunt because that's one that's been on my list for so long, and I just haven't been there yet. So I think I'm gonna have to plan that one on the schedule.
Perfect. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll pack up, all of our stuff and head that direction as like having a full Heather's Choice booth, but at the very least, I'd like to show up and hang out with our favorite people and say hello to everybody.
Yeah, definitely. So Heather, where can people find everything with Heather's Choice and anything else that's going on? Just any plugs that you want to throw here at the end.
Yeah. So people can definitely head over to heatherschoice.com and see what all is on the menu. Like I said, we have a team of 15 people right now that are, buying the ingredients, prepping, cooking, dehydrating, packaging, shipping. Like we do everything kind of within the four walls of Heather's Choice here at our facility in Anchorage. So it's always nice when people order from us because they get it directly from our team. We also have distribution through Go Hunt. They're a really fantastic partner of ours. Wilderness Athlete has our products. Black Ovis, Sportsman's Warehouse. Who else is on that list? It's a pretty easy list of people. Like, I feel like we're most places. And yeah, if you want to go support one of our retailers, you can head over to our website, click on the store locator, and you can find one of the independents that we sell to. We're also on Amazon, and we're just kind of trying to be all over the place. And if I would say, if you're listening to this and you want our meals for hunting season, order them early, because historically we sell out every summer, even though I try my damnedest to make enough to not sell out. It's just part of the reality for us, is that there's more demand than we can keep up with during peak season.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's not a terrible problem to have until you're in it, but
I just want different problems. I've had this problem for 8 years now. I would like a different problem, please.
Okay. Yeah, and anybody that's listening, if you do want to order directly from the website, East Meets West will get you free shipping, which coming from Alaska, that's a big deal. So definitely, if the other retailers are out of stock or whatever, and you want to do that route, then check that out too.
Yeah. Awesome, man. I really appreciate it. And again, proud of you for getting some sleep, proud of you for going full time. And I'm going to be proud of you when you decide that it's time to move to Alaska.
Oh, man. Well, thank you so much, Heather, for coming on. And I always listen to your advice. It just takes a while. So
go get those. It was avocado oil potato chips. Hopefully you wrote that down.
Oh, I have it written down. I have ghee written down. I've got the human pro amino acid. I got it all written down. Don't you worry.
Perfect.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit eastmeetswesthunt.com, Facebook at East Meets West Outdoors, and Instagram at East Meets West Hunt. If you enjoyed today's episode, please review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.